Hello and welcome back to the podcast. I am so happy to have you here. Today, we are going to dive into a question that I received, and I am just so in love with this question. So, we're going to dive right in. The question is part of moving on and changing my way has been discrediting what I've done and I guess in a way making it wrong. I feel like I'm creating tower moments over and over again when I don't even think that it's necessary. I feel like I'm making it wrong so I can move on. How can I shift this? So, yes, I love this question. There's so much here. First, having the awareness that you are observing yourself kind of holding on to things until you reach this point where you're like, I have to do something about it. I have to create this momentum, this pressure to then make this shift or make this transition. And so the tower moment that is referenced in this question is really this crumbling of structure. So it's this moment to kind of stop and get really clear on what it is you are building up from, so what your foundation is. And I feel like a lot of people can relate to this, to feeling like they know something's off and they know something is ready to change, but it doesn't quite happen until there's this big momentum where it's like, okay, everything can crumble now, everything can fall apart because now I'm ready to rebuild. And so, which in life, we need those moments. Those moments are intertwined, right? But we don't want to live in that ebb and flow. There's not much flow about that, but we don't want to live in that all the time. And so I can really feel, the kind of like, I'm ready to do this differently energy with this question. So if you're here listening, I think this would be relatable for all of us because when we have this awareness, like something's not right. Okay. If we think, well, it will show it, it will show itself. We'll figure it out. And there is this like initiative that we can take and this intention to have the awareness to know what is the next step to relieve some of this pressure and to say like this is gonna remove tower moments. That's not a thing. Like that's not what we're accomplishing by this, but what this is going to help you with is having you feel like you are co-creating, right? Like you're in this with life. Like you're not just receiving life, right? Like you're creating it as you go. And if you feel like you're always having to wait until you can tear everything down, then you're not probably feeling very empowered and you're not feeling like you're creating your life. So let's dive into a few of these things. Making things wrong in order to release them. This is a common conditioning. This is like a common mindset thing. Because if something was once aligned, right, correct for me, however, whatever language we want to use, the hierarchy and the duality of the non-duality, I should say. I don't know. My words are not coming to me right now, but we're gonna keep going. If something was once right and now we feel differently about that, automatically we're gonna want to think that it's now wrong. Even if it's not. That's like our logical brain wants to say, well, it's not right anymore, so it must be wrong. And this is where we get into, okay, if I'm releasing something, does that mean like it's bad? And some people, that's how they do release things. That's how they release relationships. They wait until they can identify that relationship as bad. When that's just not the case. Like oftentimes relationships are ready to be released before we can put a label of it being bad. And So, as you can think about that, we'll get into some more examples, but it's very deep where we think something has to be bad, wrong, broken to be released, to be changed, right? I like the thought, the phrase like don't fix what isn't broken just popped up. And like, I've heard this so many times, and I get that to a certain extent. But I also think like it's not I mean, and it's all terminology, right? Because like you don't have to fix it. This is like getting into the healing cycle too. Because it's not about fixing. Like if we can release our attachment of like what we're doing when we're becoming aware of something, when we're observing something, when we're thinking about how it could be differently, when we're thinking about how things could change, like it doesn't have to be about fixing. So it doesn't have to be broken, right? So really removing the layers of like, why am I changing something, and empowering yourself to change because you want to, and change because it feels good to, or because you like this more. So I think about, um, I'm thinking about relationships, but I don't know, that might not be the best example. But it's like with food, if you're like, I really like pepperoni pizza, and then at some point you're like, I really don't like pepperoni pizza that much anymore. Like, it's not bad, right? Like, it doesn't make pepperoni pizza bad. Some people might associate, oh, it doesn't taste good anymore, right? We're going to do what we need to do to help us disconnect. But what that's doing is waiting for things outside of us to tell us, okay, it's okay to change. It's okay for this to be released now. When we can decide, hey, I feel differently about this, and I see that this could take its place, or I could see how this could give me space to open up for something else that maybe I'm not sure of. But like being really honest with yourself, giving yourself permission to change your mind, to move on, is really going to help empower you for these things to start happening before it gets so uncomfortable. A tower moment is often associated with like the discomfort because it's really this like this raw awakening of like, oh, what I was just feeling supported with is no longer true. So I could continue with that knowing that it feels kind of not good. Or you can let things crumble and fall out of the way. And a lot of people don't like doing that because then they think about what they have to rebuild, right? And so they wait for that until it's like they're forced to. But what we want to do is not wait for it. We want to be like a little bit proactive. And the way you do this is by being really aware and being really intentional with what you're doing. I This is really a side note. I thought I was intentional like over the last few years. I was like, wow, I'm really intentional with my actions, with what I do, with my time. But there is a whole another like layer of intentionality that I am just tapping into. So like don't ever think that you're overdoing it with intention. Like you cannot. So it's a lot of, why am I showing up like this? Why am I doing it this way? And like getting curious. There's no right or wrong, and that's the fun part of this. So I think if we feel like we are creating tower moments for us, I think that is something to look into in regards to where are you not deciding. What they're saying is like you are aware of your decisions before you're making them, which is fine. But you're given opportunities to make those decisions and then you wait. And so there's a part of you that loves the tower moment because now you're in the cycle of it. Now you're aware of it. Now you know, okay, this is how it kind of falls out, and this is how it falls into place. So knowing and recognizing, okay, you're in this pattern. What is it gonna look like to step out of that cycle? What would it look like to stay in something a little bit more uncomfortable longer than tearing it down? Like sitting in it a little bit longer before you feel the need to crumble. And then I would get really curious on if things are crumbling, why are you rebuilding so quickly? So there's this thought of like if you're repeating the tower moment, then what you're rebuilding on isn't stable. It's not solid. Now, if you're creating tower moments in different areas of your life, if it's showing up in different ways, I can see how that is going to manifest because you are welcoming in that type of like transformation, that type of knowing and understanding. It's like if your intuition, if your body, if your human self is going to react and respond and then change after having tower moments and it's for your highest good, that's what's going to keep coming to you, right? So then you get to decide, okay, maybe I'm in this moment, but how am I going to rebuild differently? Right? It almost is like this energy of we're rebuilding things in the same way, and we're really being called to like build on different ground, use different resources, and like they're saying it looks different. Like it's not even going to look the same. And so we think we're having these tower moments, but we're not because we're rebuilding the same structure. So with this, they're saying that when we have these tower moments, it's not about discrediting what didn't work or what no longer works. It's about using that as wisdom and experience to then create something new or different for it to be applied differently. Yeah, they're saying like forgiveness and having gratitude for like the moments that led you there. So a lot of the like manifestation of this happening over and over again is because you need that same lesson. Because the tower moment is not about shunning everything that happened, right? Like my incarnation cross is a sleeping phoenix. Like I'm all about like burning things down when it's ready to be burnt down. But I'll say like there is this sense, like there's this ritual behind it. It's not just like, oh, that's not for me anymore, so I gotta burn it down. Like there's this sense of like honoring it, having the gratitude of the experiences, the relationships, whatever it is, your way of being, your unhealthy habits, whatever it is, it had served you in some way. And when we have these tower moments, it's almost like we're shaming that. And it's there's like almost this energy of like it's so bad, that's why we have to burn it down, that's why it has to crumble. And it's like no. It can't be that bad if it helps you bring you to where you are right now. Like it's not that bad. And that's what they're saying is like you're going to create this momentum of crumbling and crumbling because one, it's satisfying to you now to a certain extent. Like that's serving you just as much to a certain extent as it is to like be up in this tower held up by beliefs and systems and support that like aren't really for you. It's kind of like the pick your discomfort. Are you going to continue to be held by the wrong things and supported and tapped into the things that don't feel good for you? Or are you going to continue this cycle of like like thinking you're trying something new, but it's really like the same structure? Or can you say, okay, I recognize that I've spent a lot of time here, and this, what they're saying is like this isn't like it doesn't, it is a decision, but like what people want, they're actually explaining the tower moment in like a whole different way. Because why do we need to? Okay. Basically, what they're saying is like this tower moment is like then you have like this clarity, right? And people think the clarity then is like everything's all laid out for them. But what the clarity is like clearing out the things that no longer serve you. Like you still have to come in with the intention. You still have to come in with like inspiration and be open to new ideas, to new things, and like then to follow your intuition. So they're saying like the step of the tower moment, people think like the intuitiveness of that is like recognizing, okay, this needs to crumble. But the intuition also needs to come in with what comes next. And people don't ask themselves, what do I want to do now that I have a clean slate? It's like they don't know that they're doing it, but it's like, oh well, this is how we build a house, so let's get started, and they're saying slow down. You know how to build a tower. Build something else. And they're like, stop with the tower moment talk. Because what this really comes down to is like you're is like moving beyond the hierarchy of things. Like our humanness wants to dismiss so we can move on, but we want to use this as like, look, these are the stepping stones that I came to get here, so I'm not going to discredit myself. They're almost showing me like it's like a video game where like somebody's helping you, right? And like they're pushing the buttons for you to have like the next step. Like they're showing it like pop out of water, like this pebble, right? And like the next step and the next step. And even though like you need to go on to the next step, like if you are like then throwing flames back at the old steps, I don't know. What they're saying is like they're not sure the next step is going to come up for you, because it's like you have to have gratitude for how you got here. And it's not about burning down the past so other people can't see it. The tower moment and burning things down and having these rebirths is so your physical vessel, so your energy body can have the clarity to take its next step. The wisdom and the experience and everything everything that led you to where you are is not to be burnt down. Okay. I don't know. That was pretty like, I think the biggest thing for me on this, because this is super relatable to me. I am a second line, so the self-deprecation thing is an easy way for me to release things. Like and I will say like be honest with yourself, because there might be some things where that is the way for you to release something initially. So I can think about, even relationships, sometimes that initial, like, I need to get out of this relationship. And I'm not just talking about like romantic relationships, but like friendships, anything, partnerships, business relationships. Sometimes it is a lower vibration that illuminates what we need to know, right? Like that's the whole point of emotions. That's the whole point of feelings and just having this awareness, like, hey, where is this feeling coming from? So oftentimes a lower vibrational feeling will activate or illuminate what you need to know to recognize, oh, maybe this isn't for me anymore. So then we want to associate with, this is now bad. This is not good because it's lower vibrational. It doesn't feel good. Like this relationship, obviously this is not a good relationship anymore. And doesn't feel good anymore. You know? And like think about how that language influences what you received out of that relationship. And then think about how that influences what you're going to receive next. So let's say it's a romantic relationship and you're ready to be done and you guys grew a ton. Maybe it was like early 20s relationship. So you found your jobs together, not like together, but like you helped find careers together. Like you moved through these big life changes. Maybe you moved into your own apartment together. Like, you know, like you had all these life things that you did together in your early 20s. And now you're ready to say this relationship is done. And maybe it's hard and it was activated by some lower vibrational events or feelings or interactions, whatever. Okay, and so oftentimes at the end of relationships, it is easier for people to find the things that are annoying, find the things that bother them, sit in that lower vibrational stuff because it helps us then say, this is why we're ending it. This is why it's over. This is why I need to release this, right? And although all of those things might be valid and true, that's not the only truth. And this isn't this won't cover all relationships, of course. Like I'm sure there are some relationships that we can agree that, you know, neither party needs to be in. And although there might not have been like good times, there's still something there and there's still something why both parties were in that relationship, but we're gonna leave it there. We're talking about like early 20s relationship. You spent maybe like after college and then moved in together, you found careers, maybe you got a dog together, like whatever, you know, you have this relationship and it's over. And then you're sitting in the lower vibrational things at the end of the relationship, which is very I want to say normal, but they're like, it's not about that. It's more about get curious on like why you're doing that and then like just see how it feels. So, I mean, I haven't ended a romantic relationship in many years, but I've always, I shouldn't say always, I resonate with that lower vibrational feeling at the end. But like, are you taking the time to reflect on everything of that relationship? And sometimes this can't be done at the end. Like it has to be like after. Everyone's different, right? But it's like more came out of that relationship than what happened at the end. And that's how we get into new relationships with the same lessons. Because we're not actually processing what we accomplished. We're not giving ourselves credit. Like we're not grateful for that experience. We're not fully receiving what that relationship gave to us if we're like going to end and sit in that like we're breaking that vibration that might bring on all the icks, you know? Like that's so common. And so that's how you shift out of the tower moments. That's how you shift out of the repeating and the always needing to like do better. I know there's this perception of if you're healing, isn't that exhausting? Isn't that like you're always finding something to work on? You're always finding something to heal. You're always doing this. And I will say, if this is your strategy, yes, it is exhausting. Because if you're always thinking like, I just released something that was no longer serving me, and you see that as something like discrediting like what you had done or taking away from that experience, you know, like what is the intention behind releasing and getting clear on your beliefs? So what they're saying is a lot of beliefs are just interfering with your desire to change. And these are subconscious beliefs that are coming up for you because they're saying like you are so supported in everything that you want to change. And if you feel like you're in that cycle, or if you feel like there's always something else that comes up, they're saying look at subconscious beliefs around releasing, endings, completion, and also getting really clear on intentions. So it's so funny. Like I have this feeling of like I wish I could send you what I mean by saying intentions, like energetically, but it's not really there. Like I can't verbalize it. This is like in your being intentions, not like I'm going to sit down. I intend to work for 40 minutes on this, this, and this. Like, great. But I'm saying, like, what frequency are you showing up in to your day, to your waking your kids up, to taking your kids to school? Like, every single thing. What frequency are you bringing? And being intentional with it. And they're saying this is healing. This is the work, is more so the intentions, because as you set the intentions and then you go to show up and you're like, oh, this situation is really like it's resistance, right? It's that resistance within you where you have this intention, but your mind or your body is like, but we're used to showing up in this way. And can you hold that frequency? And if you do, great. If you don't, great. That's just new information. And it doesn't have to be this, now I have something else to heal. This is now I know something new about me. And I will say, in all the years of studying myself, studying myself has been the biggest thing to help me understand other people. Like I could talk with my wife for hours and hours and hours, and I could learn new things about her and feel like I understand her on a new level, of course. But I couldn't fully, like, I can only receive as much understanding of her as I can understand myself. And I have noticed this in my relationships, and I think about this with my experiences, because like everything is just a mirror of everything else. And so my relationships, seeing how, okay, the more time I take to understand myself, the more I have to like understand other people. It's just easier for me to say like, oh, that's a part of them. That's how they're showing up right now. That's the frequency they're choosing right now. It releases a lot of judgment. And so on your experiences, it's the same thing. The more you are in tune with yourself, it doesn't matter. Like you can release the judgment on any situation or thing or habit or idea that you're releasing. There's no judgment when you can see how much you understand yourself and how you can surrender to the idea that that experience or whatever served you and in the best way possible. Like my thought is like I can either trust that things are happening for me, or I can create this idea in my head that I know best, and it's easier to live in fear. Like that's what it is. Fear and control. And it's so interesting because I'm like, if I'm not thinking about all the things, then am I going to miss something, you know? And you can really release that. It's like the more control I give away, the less I feel like I'm missing something. And like, this isn't about giving away my power. This is about giving away your need to know, the need for it to play out in a specific way, the need for the lesson to come in a specific way, the need for the answer to come in a specific way, the need for the financial support to come in a specific way. Like, right? Like, we want to control how things happen for us because that feels really good to our mind. But when you start playing around with, well, what would it be like to feel surprised? And to know you are supported, you kind of start to realize really quick that you are in your own way. So this has been interesting. I'm like, what did we talk about on here? So I think I'm gonna pull a card to just kind of wrap it up here and see if we have some final messages. We're gonna do the Shaman's Dream Oracle. I love this deck. So, reminder, if you want to watch the episodes on YouTube, you can see the cards we're pulling. Okay, well, these two for sure. Ooh, in the hand. This is like exactly what we were just saying, that the universe is co-creating with you. And Lost Compass, getting back to integrity. So we have 31 and 35. I feel like I've pulled these cards recently. I don't know if it was on the podcast or not. Both of these cards go really well together. I'm going to pull the next card too. Okay. Yeah, so Lost Compass and In the Hand is very much about like surrendering and trusting that like you're being divinely guided. And getting back to integrity. It's like, where are you not being honest with yourself? Like the only reason not the only reason, the big reason why, you're feeling a little bit lost, where you're feeling like things aren't right, this doesn't feel good. They're saying it's like, get back to yourself. It's because you haven't been honest with yourself. And when you're not honest with yourself, you can't be honest with the people around you. So getting back to yourself is going to come back to integrity. They're interrelating like integrity with being honest with yourself, because having that awareness is going to help you express that. And then the other two cards I got was a sacred it's covenant, a sacred contract, and Will the Wisp, which says treasures hidden in the shadows. So there's definitely some wounds that are ready to come to the surface, honestly. I was gonna look up something really quick. Okay. Yeah. Definitely some wounds. June is, I think, 6. Yeah, 9. No, that's personal. What is it collective? Collective 4. And we're in a 7 year. Okay, so June, I just had to figure that out in my head. June, numerology, is a 4 month, and we're still in a year 7. And what this is like telling me, you are creating a contract with the universe. And it's time to like claim that. It's time to say, like, I am ready to create with you. I am ready to do this. Right? There's like this mission oriented energy, like showing up fully, because it's like, oh, I know what I want. And I know what I want because I took the time to like sit with myself and ask myself and release all this clutter that isn't mine. And you get like really clear on what it is that you desire, and you get really clear on what you want to do. and you can see like this path because you're divinely guided. And there's like this compass, like it's like the more you peel back the layers and you like identify like, oh, this actually isn't my belief. I've been doing this, but this doesn't feel good. The more you peel back, the more you're gonna feel like there's this compass, like there's your heart, for one, it is in your heart space, but like it literally is pulling, it's a magnet, it's guiding you. And right now you might feel lost. And it's about coming back to yourself and getting to know yourself, being honest, having the hard conversations. Like this isn't like treasures hidden in the shadows. This is like your awareness is coming up and like you're like, "Oh, I knew this. I knew this was coming." But it's so deep in the shadows because there's so many layers of conditioning and expectations and things like laid out that you think I have to do this in order to bring up this thing deep inside of me. Make a contract with yourself, with the universe. It is sacred. Set the intention of what you want to call in, what you want to shift, what you want to create, and you're going to be divinely guided and supported. There's lots of shedding. I was talking about the 4-month co-creation. This is definitely in connection with the universe, your guides, God, source. That's the relationship that's being harnessed right now, and you're so supported that you're going to find yourself being brought to maybe new relationships, but people coming to you who you might have known from the past, but also like with renewed energy and like just having different interests or new things to talk about. And that's going to be the support. So it's not just the divine, right? Like the humans here too are going to find you and help you. But setting this intention and really like committing to this contract, like committing, like, why did I come here? And maybe the why isn't so clear, but knowing that you came here for a specific reason, and you're gonna reveal that. So, okay, I think we're complete with the episode for today. If you enjoyed this episode, then please leave a review. I would greatly appreciate that, and it helps the show so much. And if you'd like to share on social media, go ahead and tag us at the Intuition Playground on Instagram. And once again, thank you for tuning in, and I will talk to you next time on the Intuition Playground.